Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Thursdays wherever across this great nation or this great world you may find yourself. This is called Outkick the Show. It's a little something we do every afternoon. All right, let's start with Titans-Jags going on tonight. Thursday Night Football, 7:15 Central Time, 8:15 Eastern. And I'm telling you right now, the best play is going to be the under. My absolute favorite play in this game is the under. It's continued to tick down. It's the second lowest under of the year when you consider all NFL action. It's down to 37, which is the most recent number, and I encourage all of you to jump in. By the way, I don't mind if you decide that you don't like one of my gambling picks, but if I happen to look over and somebody is being fade the picks guy, you're dead forever, and you're never allowed to be on the show again, right? Let me just give you a little tutorial in case you wonder. Fade the picks guy is the equivalent of a guy who is incapable of getting an erection. Because basically what he's saying is, rather than be able to make my own decisions, I am going to sit back and I am going to simply see what somebody else does who's much smarter and more successful than me, and I'm going to try to do their opposite. You can have any opinion you want. But if you do the opposite of respecting the picks and you decide that you are going to fade the picks, you don't get to comment anymore. You're gone forever. You are banned. If I happen to look over and see it, you are going to die, all right? The Chiefs play the Chargers on Thursday. If I say something simple that is incorrect, and it's clear that I'm misspeaking because I'm trying to do everything extemporaneously, read comments, talk out, is it really that big of a deal? Is it really that big of a deal? You are gone forever. Your penis doesn't work, and you are basically telling everybody that you don't have a functional penis, just right for the whole world to see. All right? That is unacceptable. Do as you see fit, but do not simply be fade the picks guy. That is completely unacceptable when you are in that position. All right? That is mosquito dick thinking, and you need to be thinking like a helicopter dick. All right? So, Titans-Jags. What is going to happen in this game? Okay? Titans-Jags, to me, is an underplay. I don't believe in Cody Kessler at all. And I don't think the Jags are going to hardly throw the ball down the field. If you want to play some prop bets, I think the under on Cody Kessler, 189.5 yards passing. I don't believe he's going to have very much success throwing the ball down the field. I think the Jags are going to pray they can keep this game low scoring, hand off to Leonard Fournette as much as they possibly can, and hope that they can keep this game in target distance until the very end of the game. Now, a couple things here. I think Marcus Mariota is going to come out and play really well. In fact, this is a great stat for you for all the Mariota haters out there. Marcus Mariota in primetime games is better than any current NFL quarterback in the entirety of the league. All right, that's a pretty crazy stat when you think about it. It is an incredible stat. Marcus Mariota quarterback rating in primetime games is better than any quarterback in the NFL. He has been phenomenal. So, I think Mariota is going to come out and have a really good game, but I think the Titans are going to be very balanced and not do anything aggressive at all. And so that's why I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I also am betting on the Jags to cover the 4.5 or the 5 points. I think this score is going to be something like 17-14. Titans win, but they win a low-scoring game. 37 is the current number. I bet this at 38.5 when it opened. It's continued to come down. Yes, I believe Marcus Mariota is the future of the Tennessee Titans. I think he has been really good. He's on pace for his best quarterback rating so far this year. He's on pace for his highest completion percentage. He is on pace to continue to grow. And if you actually look outside of his injuries, the biggest concern I have about Mariota is just can he stay healthy. That's the number one concern by far. If the Titans win tonight, they're actually set up to potentially make the wild card because the Titans will have 3 games remaining after tonight. They win tonight. If they do it, as they're favored to do, they'll be 7-6. Then they go on the road and they play against the New York Giants, which is at worst a 50-50 game. And then from that game, they get to come back home and close over a really cool situation. They get to close against the Redskins, who are effectively done, and then they get to close against the Indianapolis Colts, who would already be eliminated. So the Titans win tonight. I think you can start to talk about them being 10-6 and rolling into the playoffs with their best record in a long time. So we'll see what happens. The wild card race is actually getting pretty intriguing, and I was going to tell you guys about that in the AFC. The NFC wild card race is going to be a mess, I think. The other wild card race in the AFC, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. These are the teams that are still alive to win in advance in the wild card race. Right now, the number 6 seed is the Baltimore Ravens. They go on the road, the Ravens do, against the Kansas City Chiefs next week, right? And that's going to be, this weekend. They go on the road against Kansas City Chiefs. Miami's hosting the New England Patriots. Then we got the Indianapolis Colts, who are sitting back and going to be going on the road against the Texans. Denver Broncos going on the road against the 49ers, and the Titans are home tonight. So those are all the teams that are fighting for the final playoff spot. If everything went according to oddsmaker perspectives, then come Sunday evening, we would have a setup where we would have a three-way tie. The Baltimore Ravens, Tennessee Titans, and the Denver Broncos would all be 7-6. So we'll see whether that happens or not. The Titans can also be eliminated. I think you're going to need to get to 10-6 in order to make the playoffs. So we'll see what transpires as the season considers to shake out. All right. All right. That is the AFC playoff race. My breakdown here, additionally, for gambling, I love the under. I like the Jags plus the 5 points. I think that's too many in a low-scoring game. I think Mariota will play well. I think the Titans will win, and it should be a pretty enjoyable game. All right, a couple of other things that I want to hit with you. Any other questions about tonight's game? Any questions at all about tonight's game? This will, like I said, be the first game of the game 13 of the 16-game season. Everybody's got 4 left. This will be the first one. The last Thursday Night Football. If you are anti-Thursday Night Football, then it will be the last Thursday Night Football game next week in Kansas City. The San Diego Chargers, the LA Chargers, whatever you want to call them, to go on the road. I don't buy into this. Hope the Titans lose out to get a better draft pick. They're not advancing if they make the playoffs. What would make you believe that? The Titans would be playing, in theory, against the Houston Texans. They're even with the Houston Texans so far. They could easily win that game. And I don't know why that would be a shock. They blew out the New England Patriots. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs last year in Arrowhead. I actually disagree completely. If the Titans win out to get to 10-6, I think they have a legitimate chance once they got into the playoffs. It would mean they're starting to play pretty well. That's a real bad argument. You always should want your team to make the playoffs if your team has shown to be good enough to beat good teams. And the Titans have certainly shown they're good enough to beat good teams. I mean, they blew out the New England Patriots, for God's sakes. They beat the Houston Texans. They can beat the Chiefs, and they can beat the Patriots in the playoffs. They just beat the Chiefs last year in the playoffs. Lots of crazy things can happen if you get to the playoffs. And if they get to the playoffs, they will have won 5 games in a row and be on an absolute roll. They almost beat the Chargers, who are on a roll right now. They had a 2-point conversion in London to beat the Chargers. So I think that's defeatist, stupid, idiotic thinking to be like, oh, I want to worry about a draft pick. First of all, you don't know that you're going to get a good draft pick. I don't think that they made a very good move, at least so far. Rashaan Evans has not made any difference at all as the first-round draft pick. Get into the NFL. If you can make the playoffs and you think you have a decent quarterback, you always want to get in the playoffs. Now, if the Titans were suddenly got injured and they had to play with Blaine Gabbert, a couple of years ago, Marcus Mariota got injured and they had Matt Castle at quarterback, and I was like, I don't even care about making the playoffs because Matt Castle is the quarterback and you don't feel like he can get hot and win any games. So you've already got Marcus Mariota, who's won a playoff game already for you. He's established that he can win a playoff game. So I think that's a really defeatist, stupid line of thinking, honestly. All right, we talked on Monday Night Football about this story quite a bit. The decision by the Washington Redskins to sign Reuben Foster. I have argued that if I were Dan Snyder right now and I was making a decision about what exactly to do as a Washington Redskins owner, I would make the decision to also sign Kareem Hunt, and I would go from there to also sign Colin Kaepernick. You got two quarterbacks with broken legs. There's an awful story out there about Alex Smith still being in the hospital. The Redskins put out a statement today. He's been in the hospital since November 18th. He's had multiple infections. This is a nasty leg break that he got. Sometimes that happens when you have a nasty leg break like he did, and you're on a football field. There is dirt and infection and everything else that can happen. So I hope that Alex Smith is going to be okay. But that fact makes it seem very possible that his career is effectively over. And Colt McCoy is going to take a while to come back from his own broken leg. I would sign Colin Kaepernick. I would sign Kareem Hunt. I would sign Reuben Foster. Okay? That's my theory on the Washington Redskins in general. But Monday Night Football made a really big deal about them signing Reuben Foster, and they had Booger McFarland and Jason Witten both comment on that decision. During the Monday Night Football broadcast, it was awkward, it was stilted, it was uncomfortable, it didn't make a lot of sense. And it happened right during the middle of the game, and of course, while they were talking about it, Mark Sanchez threw an interception, and the result of the interception was the crowd was cheering, and they suddenly were pulled out of the game, if you're watching on the telecast, because they were talking about domestic violence. And so I think this is intriguing, okay? I think this is intriguing in general. Jason Witten was talking about his opinion on whether or not the Redskins should have signed Reuben Foster. And you need to go read my column on this if you haven't read it already, because I think it'll be a little bit eye-opening for you. And as part of that discussion, Jason Witten said something different about Reuben Foster than he had previously said about Greg Hardy when Greg Hardy was signed by the Dallas Cowboys. Let me read you those quotes. Jason Witten asked if the Redskins should sign Reuben Foster, said 100% no. I think the Washington Redskins used horrendous judgment in claiming this guy, and I understand that it's an ongoing investigation, but my family's been affected by domestic violence. I understand the anguish that it causes. Young players just have to understand there is no tolerance for putting your hands on a woman. Perfectly fine. I don't know that I need to hear Jason Witten say that or Booger McFarland or anybody else say it, because my assumption is, just like everybody's against cancer, everybody is against men hitting women, right? I don't think there's a huge group of people out there that are like, you know what? I think men hitting women is advisable. I wish men beat their wives more often. I wish men beat up their... I don't need to hear that this is not an ideal situation from somebody, just like I don't need to hear somebody raise their hand and say, hey, by the way, I'm against cancer. Oh, well, that's good of you. I assume that every reasonable human on the planet is opposed to domestic violence, just like you're opposed to cancer. It is a bad situation. But Jason Witten, when they signed Greg Hardy, said this. I think more than anything, I think everybody knows I'm against domestic violence. That's something that I live, my family lived. But the guy is a teammate of mine, so I think you have to look at it from that standpoint. As Coach Garrett says, it's our job to invite those guys in and create a standard of how we do things. I think he's done a great job since he's been here. It's not my job to decide who comes in. I'm a tight end, but I've been really pleased how he's approached it. Anyway, he basically endorsed Greg Hardy being a member of the Dallas Cowboys. And as I was watching this, the minute that Jason Witten said that, a ton of you out there started tweeting me about these comments. So, look, Jason Witten could have easily said, look, I'm speaking now as an individual. Before that, I was speaking as a member of a team. I'm sure that just about everybody out there has worked for an employer or worked for a business where you didn't agree with every decision that your coworker was making. And I don't think anybody would dispute that. But ESPN threw him under the bus because they knew what he had said about Greg Hardy, and they didn't ask him to distinguish between those two, okay? And as a result, I think what happened is ESPN was one of two things. Either they were thoroughly incompetent, and the entire production staff is filled with idiots who didn't think about these comments that were already made. Those comments, by the way, I'm reading from ESPN's own website, okay? Or two, which I think is more likely, ESPN is now promoting the UFC, and one of the lead fighters in the first UFC event is, wait for it, Greg Hardy. I think ESPN didn't want to publicly condemn Greg Hardy on their broadcast because they knew they were going to put him on ESPN soon, fighting, at least thankfully, a man as part of their desire and new partnership with the UFC. This is pretty unbelievable to me. So this means ESPN is doing the exact same thing with Greg Hardy that they were trying to rip the Washington Redskins for doing with Reuben Foster. Except unlike the Redskins, who have yet to have somebody jog out and actually represent them wearing the burgundy and red, ESPN is actually making money based off of Greg Hardy. It's the height of hypocrisy. They are doing the exact same thing that they were ripping the Washington Redskins for doing, except it's worse because Reuben Foster hasn't been convicted of any domestic assault or domestic violence, whereas Greg Hardy was. Now, he eventually got off on a technicality after he was convicted, but this is an unbelievable story. To me, this is wild. ESPN didn't give Jason Witten a full opportunity to defend his perspective. They let him get ripped, and most people are going to miss the fact that now ESPN is doing the same thing that they were ripping the Washington Redskins for doing. On a personal basis, my statement on these kind of stories is straightforward. If you aren't in jail, you should be able to represent yourself in any kind of legal employment that you want. So I don't have a problem with Greg Hardy being employed. I don't have a problem with Reuben Foster being employed. If your talent exceeds your problems, you have the right to be employed. If an employer believes you are good enough, then they can sign you. But ESPN getting away with ripping the Washington Redskins for signing Reuben Foster and then doing the same exact thing with Greg Hardy is the height of hypocrisy. I bet you won't hear it called out by anybody at ESPN for sure. And you certainly won't hear it, I bet, from anybody else in media either. I think the reason that ESPN led Jason Witten over the middle and let him get run over was because they didn't want to bring up Greg Hardy, because they knew within 36 hours they were going to be announcing Greg Hardy as one of the lead fighters in their first ever UFC event. Think about that if you would. I love all of you guys. I got to go get ready for my television show. This is Outkick the Show. Enjoy Titans, Jags tonight. Take the under. Take the Jags +5 or +5.5. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This is Outkick the Show. If you say to me, fix your hair, you are blocked forever. And you are never able to ever talk to me again on this show. Lock it in, boys and girls. Me, Todd Furman, Rachel Bonetta, and Cousin Sal. We will be off and rolling in about 30 minutes on FS1. Kisses, boys and girls. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Love you, Facebook. See ya. Bye.